It is the year of our Lord 2022, and I'm reviewing Bagman. And Marvel Legends is serious about it. Be real. Did you honestly think that at any point when running this channel, I was gonna be reviewing a Marvel Legends on the Bombastic Bagman? It's funny because I've actually already seen so much iconography behind this rendition of Spidey, trailing to even back of the days of the PS1 Spider-Man game, because I know that this is a very much a cult classic when it comes to costumes that can be unlocked in games or some form of software, some kind of obscure Easter egg type thing. And I'm kind of surprised that the MCU or even any of the Sony movies have not taken full advantage of this particular attire. But then again, when are we going to have the proper actual arrangements to have Spidey meet the Fantastic Four for that to happen? But I digress. Here we have the Bombastic Bagman in Marvel Legends form, brought to you by more or less the retro card line. This time around, the box has the retro card display with the window box, so none of that windowless, plasticless packaging. You actually get a full retro card on the back with the bubble packaging, and the retro card itself is actually pretty fitting of that old school, very pulpy look with the bright blue and yellow. You even got little anecdotes here and there popping up saying the Bombastic Bagman in 3 languages no less. And then on the back you get, of course, much more yellow lettering and description of why exactly it is that Spidey's wearing this attire, because during a particular comic book storyline, Spidey actually lost his suit, and it was actually up to him meeting up with the Fantastic Four that brought him an extra spare. But of course, the Fantastic Four, they don't really wear masks, so he had to settle for a paper bag. Now, honestly, I can't remember what the circumstances were for him to have lost his suit, and this is what he had to make do when he had to rush home and get his actual spare. So, for Marvel Legends to at least commemorate the 60-year anniversary this time around, this particular cycle here in 2022, and give us a Marvel Legends on the Bagman attire is actually pretty commemorative. The fact that they went out of their way to put together this figure is at least deserves its own little kudos to actually pay homage to the fans who are huge into this costume. Now, that's not without its quirks. That makes me think that maybe this could have been a last-minute addition to the whole scheduling release of Marvel Legends to commemorate that year, which I guess the pessimistic side of me could lean towards that being the case, but I'm kind of glad that it was, because I actually kind of like this guy. I like this guy. Of course, there's a little bit of the silliness to the attire already that already was going to happen by proxy because of just how ridiculous the attire is in the comic book storyline. It's another to actually have a worthwhile figure that feels pretty good in hand, not without a couple of observations here and there, most notably there on the back, that I had to take a moment to internalize and think to myself, yeah, this leans towards my theory that this was a last-minute rendition, because if you'll notice that a little bit of the proportions are a little off when it comes to the limbs. You'll notice how much beefier and overall much more muscular the arms are versus that of the legs. Even before I pulled him out of the box, seeing the legs, I thought to myself, yeah, I think this is a yet another repaint, because I could have sworn I've seen these specific legs on prior Spidey figures that I've even covered on this channel earlier this year. But as I went up and started to mess around with the articulation and the actual dynamics of the top part of the body, I noticed that they actually feel pretty premium, actually, more so around the shoulder area. There's something about the plastic utilized for the main chest area and the torso as well as the shoulders that feels much more different than that of the legs. The legs definitely feel like those other older Marvel Legends Spidey figures that I've covered in the channel earlier, like the Cyborg Spider-Man as well as the Symbiote Spider-Man, and then even maybe not 2099, but just a couple here and there. Negative Zone Spider-Man, definitely an awful lot of materials utilized here for the legs that kind of makes me think that they might have Frankenstein this thing at the last minute, giving him the proper Fantastic Four color scheming as well as the bag head. But at least it works in the illusion that this is in fact a very quirky figure that has it has a charismatic presence, especially when, despite my reservations about the legs, they had to, of course, sculpt out brand new feet. And it's because of the feet that makes me think that they had no choice but to go for a different styling of feet to at least complement the suit to make it look like it's kind of tethering and looping around the bottom part of the sole of his feet. Because look at the size of those peddlers. Look at that. Even outside of the box, before pulling him out, I noticed just how crazy these feet looked inside of the package. And I'm like, yeah, that's definitely going to be mentioned in the review. You know what they say about big feet? You know, Spidey's packing and not in the bag. So it looks like this might have been a brand new asset. The legs might have been recycled a little bit from prior Spideys, unless I'm proven wrong. And some people call it out in the comments, just like they did with Amazing Fantasy. If you guys have any kind of source or material, please let me know. Once we get to the top part is where I feel like it's a bit more premium, and even a little bit of the shading and the actual print factor along the four insignia on his chest looks very high quality. It actually looks like a legitimate print. It doesn't look like it's fading or anything. And so the saturation of the blue with the black accents on the gloves, the part around his neck, and even the belt look pretty quality. And speaking of quality, we get to arguably my favorite part of the whole ensemble, which of course is the paper bag head. It's actually really well sculpted with the creases. You even have a little bit of the jagged lines with the perforations there at the bottom of the bag where it tears off over at the grocery store where they had to kind of remove it. But to me, the small detail that really completes the entire thing and really makes it for me as far as the bag head is concerned is that the eyes underneath the holes here are not only fully painted, but sculpted in a way that feels, I don't want to say lifelike, but it actually looks legitimate, like it was taken right out of that comic panel of him having to swing home to make sure that he can change effectively. And when you tilt the head up, which we'll cover a little bit more fluidly in the articulation portion, you can actually see a bit of his chin to sell a little bit more of that illusion as far as the bag head is concerned. So I do think that they went out of their way to make sure that the bag head sold the illusion, sold the overall complete ensemble, and that's probably one of the things that makes me overlook the recycling of the legs even more. Overall, I'm pretty satisfied with the way that the figure looks. And likewise, I'm pretty satisfied for how it feels and how it poses, because the articulation on said bag head you would think would be kind of limited due to the way that the bag is shaped in a very square format. And certain directions you would be right about that because there's no form of real tilting. But when it comes to very fluid rotation, it rotates all the way around 360 degrees and properly pivots downwards about that far, only as far as the bag actually allows it, and extends almost all the way towards the top, enough for you to be able to see, like I said, the little chin part that they did sculpt out. Now, it is also interesting to note that it can kind of shimmy and slightly pivot inwards and outwards like so to kind of give them a little bit of fluidity going backwards and forwards like so. Once we get to the top arms, they are fully able to rotate 360 degrees via a ratcheted joint that feels very, very smooth and fluid. Unfortunately, no butterfly joints of any kind. It's just one directional joint right here on the shoulder, so you can kind of see kind of peering through there. So no real shrugging motion of any kind or butterfly articulation, but you are able to extend them to the full 180 degree angle right about right there. And then of course we got bicep swivels that are able to rotate all the way around, two joints at the elbow that are fully able to, well, I guess somewhat able to fully bend all the way upwards. They kind of come into contact with each other because of how much slightly bulkier the biceps were made out to be, at least much more differently than that of the bottom leg joints, like I covered before, with the fact that they might have Frankensteined this thing together. And the wrists are able to fully rotate 360, as well as the hinge allows it to move the hands inwards and outwards like so. Right off the bat, you'll notice that there is torso hinge right there in the middle of his abdomen that allows proper crunching inwards via a ratcheted joint that kind of slaps into place, but unfortunately not much in the way of extending towards the back. It only kind of nudges slightly towards the back, but nothing really to write home about there. However, right above the belt, there is a horizontal waist cut that allows it to fully rotate horizontally 360 degrees via a ratcheted joint there that stays in place whenever you move it. And once we get to the legs, of course, because they are recycled parts, you're going to have that same recycled articulation. You're able to fully extend the legs about that far before it starts to kind of veer off at an angle because of the way that the butt sculpt and the overall crotch piece is designed. But of course, you are able to extend only about that far, about the 45-degree angle, as well as the thigh joints are able to swivel all the way around, though mine came just slightly tighter than I would have wanted them to, but still get the job done. 2 joints at the knee that are fully able to bend all the way upwards like so. And though despite designing brand new, very enlarged feet that are definitely alluring to the naked eye amongst the collectors and such, they are, however, hindered by that usual ankle articulation that I always complain about. Of course, I know it's become a bit of a broken record, but they are able to pivot downwards almost vertically, completely like that, and extend towards the top almost about that far, and cannot really rotate unless you pivot them all the way around downwards like so, or they can kind of incline inwards and outwards towards the inwards parts of the leg or the ankle, or outwards like that. And even though there's a decent amount of weight to said feet because of how much bigger they are to be able to position him, again, some of the proportions may be a turnoff for some people, especially when you take into account how much limiting those legs are because of how they were in the past versus the way that much more premium feeling the top arms as well as the head truly feel. Frankly, Bagman didn't really come with as many accessories as the usual Marvel Legends come with, specifically web accessories, because on the one hand, it kind of makes sense since this is Bagman. He's trying not to make it seem like there's another hero or somebody else trying to impersonate Spidey when he's swinging home, but I think at least one strand of web, at least a very different one than the usual one they'd like to throw in, would have been welcome. He does, however, come with an extra set of hands that you're able to swap out from the default fisted hands he comes with. However, the extra pair of hands are these open hands, which are designed to mimic the art that you saw on the retro card, which is pretty cool, but no web shooting hands. So that's probably a first for me, that a Spidey figure does not come with a typical shooting. I guess if it's not going to come with webs, retroactively it's not going to come with any web shooting hands, so it kind of makes sense if you want to look at it that way. And mines were a little tight, but once you get them swapped out, you pretty much can recreate that panel or the artwork that again was on the front and the back of the retro card when unboxing the figure. So I do think it's a nice little touch to get the figure kind of reminiscent, and again, it kind of sells the image, especially when you take into account the art and paint decals and the little details underneath the bag that, to me, makes this a bit of an underdog for a figure. Again, wish that there would have been a little bit more as far as accessories are concerned, so nothing else that I can really comment. Oh, right. We forgot about Johnny Storm's little gift that he left on Spidey's extra Fantastic Four spare costume. Of course, you know, Johnny ever being the prankster that he likes to be. He does come with a Kick Me sign with the tape on the top there, and it's a pretty clever use of the slot that Marvel Legends Spidey figures typically come with on the back. That's mainly designed for flight bases in case you want to pose him in a way where it looks like he's swinging, but this time around they actually gave it a peg on the back of the sign to slot into said hole that these Marvel Legends typically have, and it's a clever usage of that feature that I think it was pretty cool, fits into the accessory, and the accessory makes sense for the costume that we're getting this time around. And again, it just adds to the charm and the compelling nature of this figure that, to me, is actually a very worthwhile pickup that I didn't think I was going to be enjoying as much as I did. The only thing that's keeping this from probably being one of my favorites of the year is the reuse of these kind of wonky legs that I never really liked out of these Marvel Legends that I've covered earlier this year. If it wasn't for this probably would have been a banger of a figure that would have possibly ended up in my top 5 Marvel Legends at the end of the year. But as it is, it just comes so close yet so far. I'm still, however, going to be giving the Bombastic Bagman Target exclusive an 8 out of 10. It's still a commendable surprise that if you're ever in a Target and you see him up on the peg, don't hesitate to pick him up if you're a Marvel Legends and Spidey fan, because again, this is a cult classic of a costume, and they actually made a worthwhile figure to commemorate it, especially during the 60th anniversary. Now, I might have asked this already in a McFarlane Toys review, so I'll go ahead and ask it in a Marvel Legends in case you missed it. Are there any specific renditions of a character, whether it be Spidey or others within the Marvel Legends line, that you would like to see and have not seen the light of day as far as a 6-inch figure is concerned? We got Bagman, so I feel like there's an awful lot of possibilities amongst the horizon. The folks over at Hasbro and Marvel Legends, they're always doing these live streams where they're revealing brand new figures from time to time. So let me know in the comment section what's a specific obscure cult classic costume of either Spidey or another hero that you would love to see get made into a Marvel Legends. I look forward to seeing your guys' replies. If you guys enjoyed this video, hit the thumbs up button. If not, hit the thumbs down. It lets me know either way. It's very informative. As always, I appreciate and thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys later. In the meantime, stay humble.